The Galactic Council chamber fell silent as Ambassador Zeth Kree of the Vorthak Empire delivered the news that would change everything. His crystalline form shimmered with barely contained fury as he addressed the assembled representatives of 47 different species. "The Devourers have broken through the Kepler defense line," Zeth Kree announced, his voice carrying the weight of impending doom. "Our combined fleets held them for 6 months, but their numbers are endless. They consume everything in their path, converting matter into more of their kind. At current projections, they will reach the core worlds within 3 standard cycles." The chamber erupted in panicked chittering, roars, and electronic bleeps as representatives from across the galaxy processed this information. The Devourers were a nightmare made manifest, a species that had emerged from the galactic rim with no apparent goal other than consumption and expansion. They turned entire worlds into gray, lifeless husks, using the processed matter to build more ships, more soldiers, more death. General Thoktar, the 4-armed military commander of the Zephyrian Confederacy, stood from his hover platform. His scarred hide bore witness to countless battles. But even his veteran composure showed cracks. "We've thrown everything at them. Plasma bombardments, quantum torpedoes, even antimatter warheads. They adapt faster than we can develop new weapons. Each defeat makes them stronger." In the corner of the chamber, almost forgotten among the larger, more vocal species, sat the human delegation. Earth's representative, Dr. Sarah Chen, listened quietly while making notes on her tablet. Humanity had only been part of the Galactic Council for 15 years, ever since first contact with the Altarian trade fleet. They were considered a minor species, young, relatively primitive, occupying only 1 star system. "Perhaps," suggested Ambassador Veltar, of the Peaceful Etherian Collective, "we should consider evacuation protocols. If we cannot stop them, we can at least preserve some of our populations in the Outer Rim territories." "Run?" General Thoktar's voice boomed through the chamber. "The Zephyrian military does not flee from any enemy. We will fight to the last warrior if necessary." "And accomplish what?" Zeth Kree's form flickered with agitation. "The Vorthak Empire has already lost 12 core worlds. Our most advanced dreadnoughts are space debris. Face reality, General. This enemy cannot be defeated through conventional warfare." Dr. Chen finally spoke up, her voice carrying easily through the chamber despite its relative softness. "Has anyone tried unconventional warfare?" The chamber fell silent again, but this time with confusion rather than panic. Representative Kulmesh of the tentacled hegemony turned his massive bulk toward the human delegation. "What could your species possibly contribute? You lack faster-than-light travel. Your weapons are chemical-based, and your population is confined to a single world. This is a war for advanced civilizations." Sarah stood slowly, ignoring the condescending tone. She had dealt with such attitudes since humanity's first diplomatic contact. Most galactic species viewed humans as barely evolved primates who had somehow stumbled into space travel. They weren't entirely wrong. Humanity's technology was indeed primitive compared to galactic standards, but they fundamentally misunderstood what that meant. "You're right that we're technologically inferior," Sarah admitted. "Our ships are slower, our weapons less sophisticated, our industrial capacity smaller. But there's something you need to understand about human history. We've spent our entire existence fighting." She activated her tablet, and a holographic display appeared above the council chamber. Images of human warfare throughout history began cycling through ancient battles with spears and shields, medieval sieges, the mechanized slaughter of 2 world wars, the precision strikes of modern conflicts. Every species here achieved interstellar travel through cooperation and peaceful development, Sarah continued. You shared knowledge, resources, technology. You built your civilizations through harmony and mutual advancement. Humanity developed differently. We've had continuous warfare for over 10,000 years. Every technological advancement in our history came from trying to kill each other more efficiently. General Thoktar leaned forward with interest. Despite his warrior culture, the Zephyrians had achieved their strength through honor-based combat and territorial expansion. Not the grinding, total warfare that Sarah described. Your chemical rockets? Sarah gestured to another hologram, showing human space technology. Originally designed to deliver nuclear warheads across continents. Our satellite networks, built to spy on enemy nations. Our manufacturing capabilities, developed to produce weapons and vehicles for global conflicts. Even our medical advances came from treating battlefield injuries. Intel Theist. The images shifted to show human military doctrine, combined arms tactics, guerrilla warfare, siege strategies, asymmetric conflict. We're not more advanced than you, but we understand war in ways you don't. Every human general studies battles fought thousands of years ago because the principles remain constant. We've refined the art of killing into a science. The Loaning, Ambassador Veltar's ethereal form shimmered with distress. Surely you don't suggest that humanity's violent nature makes you superior to peaceful civilizations? Violence is the mark of an underdeveloped species. You're missing the point, Sarah replied patiently. I'm not celebrating violence. I'm stating a fact. You've all described the Devourers as an unstoppable force because they adapt to your tactics, but your tactics are all variations on the same theme. Advanced technology applied through straightforward military doctrine. You're trying to outgun them with better weapons. She paused, letting this sink in before continuing. What if they encountered an enemy that doesn't rely on superior technology? What if they faced tactics they couldn't predict because those tactics were developed by a species that spent millennia fighting itself? The chamber buzzed with translation systems working overtime as representatives discussed this proposition in their native languages. Finally, Zethkri spoke for the group. Even if your tactical knowledge has merit, how could it matter? Your fleet consists of 3 outdated vessels with primitive weapons. The Devourers have consumed entire armadas. Sarah smiled for the first time since entering the chamber. You're thinking like galactic citizens again. Yes. Our official fleet is tiny, but Earth has something no other world possesses: 7 billion people who've spent their entire evolutionary history competing for limited resources. When we fight, we don't just send our military, we mobilize our entire civilization. The holographic display changed to show Earth's industrial capacity, not just official military production, but civilian manufacturing, research facilities, even garage workshops and backyard inventors. Every human nation maintains detailed plans for total war mobilization. We can convert civilian infrastructure to military production within weeks. Our space program isn't just government agencies, it's private companies, universities, even hobbyist groups launching rockets from their backyards. And General Thoktar's 4 arms gestured excitedly. You mean to conscript your entire population? Conscript? Sarah laughed. General, if Earth declared war on an enemy threatening our survival, we'd have trouble keeping volunteers away from recruitment centers. Humans don't just fight for territory or resources. We fight for concepts, freedom, justice, revenge, or just because someone told us we couldn't win. The implications began dawning on the assembled representatives. Ambassador Kulmesh shifted nervously. Surely your leaders would not authorize such mobilization based on the recommendation of this council? They already have, Sarah announced, causing an immediate uproar. Earth received the Devourer threat assessment 6 hours ago. Every human nation has declared a state of emergency and begun war preparations. Our industrial complexes are already retooling for military production. She activated another holographic display showing Earth's current state. Massive factories churned out spacecraft components, chemical plants produced exotic fuels, and training facilities processed millions of volunteers. The planet looked like a massive war machine spinning to life. But even so, Zethkri protested, your technology remains inferior. What can primitive vessels accomplish against adaptive enemies? You're still thinking conventionally, Sarah replied. Yes. Our ships are primitive, but that might be an advantage. The Devourers adapt to quantum shields and plasma weapons because they understand the principles. What happens when they encounter solid steel armor and chemical explosives? Technologies so primitive they might not even register as weapons. A.M. The chamber fell silent as representatives contemplated this possibility. Their advanced civilizations had moved beyond such crude technologies millennia ago. Could something so primitive actually confuse an adaptive enemy? Furthermore, Sarah continued, human military doctrine emphasizes redundancy and improvisation. If one approach fails, we immediately try another. We don't rely on single superweapons or perfect strategies. We throw everything at the enemy simultaneously. Conventional attacks, guerrilla raids, sabotage, psychological warfare, whatever works. General Thoktar was now openly excited. Yes, I see the logic. The Devourers adapt to patterns. But if there are no patterns to adapt to? Exactly, controlled chaos. Every human military unit trains to operate independently if cut off from command. They'll improvise tactics, jury-rig equipment, and fight with whatever's available. You can't adapt to pure randomness. Ambassador Veltar still seemed disturbed by the discussion. Even accepting your tactical advantages, the numbers remain impossible. The Devourers have millions of ships, billions of soldiers. How many vessels can Earth possibly deploy? Sarah's smile widened. How many do you think? The question hung in the air while the aliens contemplated Earth's limited industrial capacity. Zethkri ventured a guess. Perhaps 1,000 ships? 2,000? Current projections estimate 50,000 vessels within the first month, Sarah announced, causing gasps throughout the chamber. But quantity isn't the real advantage, it's diversity. No two human ships will be identical. Different nations, different designs, different tactical doctrines. Some will be sleek interceptors, others armored assault vessels. Some will carry conventional weapons, others will mount equipment you'd never expect in military use. The holographic display showed the variety of human spacecraft under construction, repurposed civilian vessels, experimental military designs, even modified asteroid mining equipment fitted with weapons. Each one represented a different approach to space combat. Impossible, Kulmesh protested. Coordinating such a diverse fleet would be a logistical nightmare. You're thinking like a galactic civilization again, Sarah pointed out. Yes, coordination would be impossible using your methods. But humans excel at organized chaos. We've developed command structures specifically designed for diverse, independent units operating toward common goals. She displayed human military organization charts, showing how different branches, nations, and even civilian groups could coordinate without central control. Every human commander is trained to interpret broad objectives and achieve them using available resources. They don't need detailed instructions. Tell them, stop the enemy advance, and they'll find a way. Even if it means ramming their ship into a devourer vessel. The implications of this statement caused another stir. Most galactic species viewed their ships and crews as valuable resources to be protected. The idea of deliberate sacrifice for tactical advantage was foreign to their thinking. Your species would truly sacrifice themselves in such a manner? Zethkri asked with something approaching awe. Every human learns stories of people who died protecting others, Sarah explained. It's not that we don't value life, it's that we value some things more than life. Freedom, family, the survival of our species. If dying in battle means protecting Earth, most humans would consider that a good death. General Thoktar nodded approvingly. This is warrior thinking. But even with such motivation, primitive weapons cannot penetrate advanced defenses indefinitely. Who says we're limited to primitive weapons? Sarah activated a new display showing human research facilities. You're forgetting something important about human nature. We steal everything. Every technology we've encountered through galactic contact has been studied, reverse-engineered, and improved upon. Not for peaceful purposes, for military applications. The display showed human scientists working with alien technologies, not to build better communication systems or medical devices, but to create weapons. Plasma rifles based on Altarian power systems, armor incorporating Zephyrian metallurgy, shield generators reverse-engineered from Vorthak trade goods. We don't have time to develop original technology, Sarah admitted. But we've had 15 years to figure out how to weaponize yours. Every human research team has been asking the same question. How do we turn this into something that kills enemies more efficiently? The assembled representatives began to understand the full scope of what humanity was proposing. Not just participation in the war effort, but a completely different approach to warfare itself. There's one more factor you need to consider, Sarah continued. Humans are vindictive. If the Devourers threaten Earth, this won't just be a military campaign for us. It will be personal. We'll hunt them to the last individual, destroy their ability to reproduce, and make sure they never threaten anyone again. The chamber fell silent as the aliens contemplated this declaration. Most galactic wars ended with negotiated settlements or territorial concessions. The concept of total annihilation was alien to their thinking. You speak of genocide, Ambassador Veltar observed with horror. I speak of survival, Sarah replied firmly. The Devourers have demonstrated that coexistence is impossible. They consume everything they encounter. Our choice is simple. Either they survive, or we do. Humans have never been interested in half measures when our existence is at stake. Zethkree's crystalline form flickered as he processed this information. Assuming your species possesses the capabilities you describe, what do you propose? Sarah stood straighter, her voice carrying the weight of her entire species' determination. Give us the Devourer's current position and tactical data. Earth will handle the rest. We don't need your fleets, your technology, or your approval. We just need a target. The silence stretched for long moments before General Thoktar spoke. The Kepler defense line is 12 light-years from Sol. Even with our fastest ships, it would take your vessels weeks to reach the battle zone. Our ships are already en route, Sarah announced, causing another uproar. Earth began launching vessels the moment we received the threat assessment. They'll arrive within 72 hours. But how? Zethkree demanded. Your species lacks faster-than-light technology. Sarah's smile held secrets that made the assembled aliens uncomfortable. No. We lack faster-than-light technology that you recognize. Humans are very good at finding alternative solutions to impossible problems. We've been working on this particular problem for 15 years. Problem Zon. The implications were staggering. Humanity had secretly developed interstellar travel capabilities while maintaining the facade of a single system species. The level of deception required suggested planning and patience that most galactic species couldn't imagine. This entire discussion has been a formality, hasn't it? Ambassador Veltar asked, with growing understanding. Your species has already committed to this course of action. The Galactic Council deserved to know what was coming, Sarah replied diplomatically. Earth values its relationships with peaceful species. But yes, the war has already begun. The only question is whether you want to observe from a safe distance or coordinate with human forces for maximum effectiveness. General Thoktar stood abruptly. The Zephyrian Confederacy will fight alongside humanity. Your tactical approach intrigues me, and your warrior spirit honors the battlefield. Other representatives began voicing similar commitments, caught up in the momentum of human confidence. But Zethkree raised a crystalline appendage for attention. Before we commit to this course, he said carefully, perhaps Dr. Chen could explain exactly what humanity intends to do when they encounter the Devourers. End quote. Before we commit to this course, Howers A51. Also Devourers Rizaln. Also Devourers 1. Sarah's expression grew cold, and for the first time, the assembled aliens glimpsed something that made them understand why humanity had survived on a world full of predators. We're going to show them why peaceful species evolved intelligence, she said quietly, and why violent species learned to hunt. The transmission ended, leaving the council chamber in stunned silence as representatives contemplated the implications of humanity's entry into the war. In 72 hours, they would have their answer. Admiral Rebecca Torres stood on the bridge of the UES Revenge, watching the tactical display with the calm expression that had earned her the nickname Ice Queen among the fleet. Around her, the largest human armada in history prepared for battle. 53,000 vessels of every conceivable design filled local space. from sleek military destroyers to converted cargo haulers bristling with improvised weapons. Devourer fleet detected at bearing 27 Mark 8, reported Lieutenant Commander Kim from the sensor station. Estimated count exceeds 1 million vessels, Admiral. They're advancing toward the Kepler defense line survivors. Torres nodded without changing expression. The numbers were exactly what Earth strategists had predicted. The Devourers operated on overwhelming numerical superiority, throwing massive fleets at enemies until resistance collapsed. It had worked against every galactic civilization they'd encountered. Signal from the Altarian refugee fleet, Communications Officer Martinez announced. They're requesting permission to retreat to safe distance. Granted, Torres replied. Signal all civilian vessels to clear the combat zone. This is about to become very unpleasant. Through the main display, she could see the remnants of the Galactic Defense Force's scattered ships from dozens of species, all that remained of the mighty armadas that had fought the Devourers for 6 months. They hung in space like broken toys, their advanced weapons systems proven inadequate against an enemy that adapted faster than they could innovate. General Thoktar's scarred face appeared on the communication screen. His four-armed frame showed wounds from the recent battles, but his warrior spirit remained intact. Admiral Torres, my remaining ships stand ready to support your attack. We have 43 vessels capable of combat. Appreciated, General, but your forces should withdraw with the civilians, Torres replied. Human tactics work best without coordination requirements. Thoktar's expression shifted to confusion. You intend to engage over 1 million enemy vessels with no allied support? We intend to engage them with human support, Torres clarified. There's a difference. Before Thoktar could respond, the tactical display erupted with new contacts. The Devourer fleet had detected the human presence and was accelerating to attack speed. Their ships were organic-looking constructs that seemed to pulse with malevolent life, each one, a fusion of consumed matter, reformed into instruments of destruction. Enemy fleet composition analysis complete, reported Kim. 70% assault vessels, 20% support craft, 10% what appear to be adaptation units. They're maintaining standard attack formation. Torres smiled coldly. Standard attack formation. The Devourers had studied galactic military doctrine and concluded that human forces would follow similar patterns. They were about to learn why that assumption was fatal. All ships. This is Admiral Torres. She broadcast on the fleet frequency. Operation Controlled Chaos is now active. Remember your mission parameters. There are no patterns, no coordinated tactics, no predictable strategies. Each unit commander has full autonomy to engage as they see fit. The only rule is make them pay for every inch. Across the human fleet, 53,000 different commanders began implementing 53,000 different battle plans. Some ships formed loose attack wings. Others operated as lone wolves. A few commanders decided to try ramming attacks immediately, while others planned elaborate ambush strategies. Captain Sarah Mitchell of the converted mining vessel Prospector's Dream had mounted asteroid-cracking charges along her ship's hull. Her plan was elegantly simple: get close enough to a Devourer ship and detonate everything simultaneously. If the explosion didn't destroy the enemy, the massive release of debris would at least obscure their sensors. Commander Zhang Wei of the UES Shanghai had taken a different approach. His destroyer carried no conventional weapons at all. Instead, it was loaded with thousands of self-guided missiles, each programmed with different targeting algorithms. Some would seek heat signatures, others would track movement patterns, and still others would simply explode randomly in enemy formations. The diversity of human tactical thinking became apparent as the fleets closed to engagement range. Devourer adaptation units immediately began analyzing human ship designs and weapon signatures, preparing countermeasures based on observed patterns. They found none. First wave contact in 30 seconds, Kim announced. Enemy adaptation units are showing unusual activity patterns. Torres watched the tactical display with satisfaction. The Devourer ships were slowing as their analysis systems struggled to process the chaotic array of human vessels approaching them. They had adapted to fight enemies with coherent strategies and standardized equipment. Faced with pure randomness, their evolutionary algorithms had nothing to work with. All ships, "Weapons free," Torres commanded. "Show them what humanity does best." The human fleet opened fire with weapons that defied classification. Conventional missiles flew alongside makeshift railguns. Laser arrays targeted enemy ships, while other vessels launched clouds of metallic chaff designed to confuse sensors. Some ships began broadcasting human music at maximum volume, flooding communication frequencies with everything from classical symphonies to death metal. The Devourers' first response was typical. Their ships began adapting shields and armor to counter the most common weapon types. Within minutes, they had developed effective defenses against lasers, plasma cannons, and conventional explosives. Their adaptation units signaled successful countermeasures, and the fleet prepared to press their advantage. Then the human fleet started getting creative. Captain Rodriguez, of the UES Mexico City, had loaded her cargo bays with paint. Not just any paint, industrial solvents mixed with reflective particles and adhesive compounds. She launched it in massive clouds that coated Devourer ships in rainbow-colored goo that hardened on contact. The affected vessels found their sensors blinded and their weapon ports clogged. The adaptation units tried to analyze this attack and develop countermeasures. But how do you adapt to paint? Their systems were designed to counter military threats, not industrial pranks. While they struggled with this problem, other human vessels began implementing equally unconventional attacks. Commander Okafor of the UES Lagos had spent weeks studying Devourer ship movements and noticed they relied heavily on magnetic field navigation. His solution was breathtakingly simple. Deploy massive electromagnets that created chaotic magnetic fields throughout the battle space. Devourer ships began spinning wildly as their navigation systems received contradictory signals. Enemy formation cohesion breaking down, Kim reported with barely concealed excitement. Their adaptation units appear to be overloading, trying to process our tactical data. Torres allowed herself a small smile. This was exactly what Earth strategists had predicted. The Devourers were victims of their own evolutionary success. They had adapted so perfectly to fight galactic civilizations that they had lost the ability to handle true chaos. The battle entered its second phase as human ships closed to point-blank range. This was where human vindictiveness truly shone. Rather than seeking clean kills, human commanders began implementing tactics designed to cause maximum confusion and terror. Captain Lisa Park of the UES Seoul had loaded her torpedo tubes with a mixture of conventional explosives and human biological waste. The psychological impact was negligible since Devourers likely didn't understand the insult. But the biological matter created sensor interference that lasted for hours. Commander Hassan of the UES Cairo took a more direct approach. His ship was equipped with ramming spikes and reinforced armor plating. He simply accelerated to maximum velocity and crashed into the largest Devourer ship he could find, setting off a cascade of explosions that destroyed 12 enemy vessels. The Devourer fleet began exhibiting signs of panic. Their adaptation units were sending conflicting signals as they tried to counter attacks that ranged from brilliant to absurd to impossible. Some human ships were fighting with textbook military precision, while others seemed to be making up tactics on the spot. "Admiral," Martinez called from the communication station, "we're receiving a transmission from the Devourer fleet. It appears to be some kind of negotiation attempt." Torres raised an eyebrow. "They want to surrender?" "Unknown, ma'am. The translation software is having trouble with their communication protocols. It might be a surrender offer, or possibly a request for clarification of our tactical objectives." "Signal response," Torres commanded. "Our tactical objective is their complete annihilation. No negotiation, no quarter, no mercy. They started this war by consuming peaceful worlds. We're finishing it by consuming them." The transmission that went back to the Devourer fleet was accompanied by new attacks that demonstrated human creativity at its finest. Commander Petrov of the UES Moscow had rigged his engines to create massive electromagnetic pulses, while simultaneously broadcasting Earth's collected works of military music. The combination of sensor jamming and psychological warfare created confusion that lasted for precious minutes. Captain Jennifer O'Brien of the UES Dublin had taken inspiration from ancient Irish warfare. Her ship launched thousands of small drones, each programmed to ram Devourer vessels while screaming battle cries in Gaelic. The sheer audacity of using suicide drones that shouted insults was so outside normal military doctrine that Devourer adaptation systems simply ignored them as non-threatening. The third phase of the battle began as human forces implemented their most devastating tactic, coordinated uncoordination. Every ship was operating independently, but they all shared the same basic objective: make the enemy pay. This created a battlefield dynamic that no military theorist had ever imagined. Thousands of individual human commanders were making tactical decisions based on opportunity, inspiration, and pure bloody-mindedness. Some attacked in formation, others as lone wolves. Some focused on specific targets, while others engaged whatever was closest. The result was a chaotic ballet of destruction that overwhelmed every Devourer adaptation system. Enemy fleet showing massive tactical confusion, Kim reported. Their formation structure has completely collapsed. Individual ships are beginning to retreat. Torres felt the predatory satisfaction that had made humans the apex species on Earth. Signal all ships, no retreats allowed. Hunt down every enemy vessel. We're not just winning this battle, we're ending this war. The human fleet began the systematic destruction of the Devourer force. Ships that had been modified for mining became improvised weapons platforms. Vessels designed for cargo hauling transformed into ramming instruments. Even civilian craft found ways to contribute, broadcasting interference signals or deploying debris fields. Captain Ahmed al-Rashid of the UES Riyadh had discovered that Devourer ships were vulnerable to certain sonic frequencies. His solution was to mount massive speakers on his vessel and play human death metal at volumes that could shatter reinforced glass. The sonic attacks disrupted Devourer communication systems and caused structural damage to their organic vessels. Commander Nakamura of the UES Tokyo took a more scientific approach. Her ship launched clouds of nanobots programmed to disassemble Devourer hull materials at the molecular level. The tiny machines burrowed into enemy ships and began systematically destroying them from within. The diversity of attacks was overwhelming the Devourer adaptation systems. Every time they developed a countermeasure for one type of assault, 3 new attack methods would appear. Their evolutionary algorithms couldn't keep pace with human imagination. "Admiral," Martinez announced, "we're receiving multiple surrender transmissions from Devourer vessels. They're requesting terms for cessation of hostilities." Torres considered this for exactly 3 seconds. "No terms. Continue the attack." They had their chance for peaceful coexistence before they started consuming worlds. Now they learn what happens when you threaten humanity. 43. The fourth phase of the battle was pure extermination. Human ships pursued fleeing Devourer vessels with the relentless efficiency of trained hunters. There was no mercy, no quarter, and no escape. Every enemy ship was hunted down and destroyed with prejudice. Captain Maria Santos, of the UES Brasilia, had rigged her ship's life support systems to create massive clouds of oxygen. When ignited, they created firestorms that could consume Devourer ships in seconds. She hunted damaged enemy vessels like a shark following blood trails. Commander Singh of the UES Mumbai had taken a more psychological approach. His ship broadcast images of human historical warfare, everything from medieval battles to modern conflicts. The intent was to demonstrate that humanity had been perfecting the art of killing for millennia. Whether the Devourers understood the message was irrelevant. The broadcast was accompanied by devastating attacks that spoke louder than words. The fifth and final phase began as human forces cornered the last Devourer ships. These vessels had witnessed the destruction of their entire fleet and were transmitting desperate pleas for mercy. They offered technological exchanges, territorial concessions, anything to avoid annihilation. Torres listened to the translations with cold satisfaction. They're learning what every predator species eventually discovers. There's always something higher on the food chain. Captain Thompson of the UES London had developed the perfect weapon for finishing wounded enemy vessels. His ship carried massive industrial saws originally designed for asteroid mining. He used them to systematically dismember Devourer ships, ensuring that no vessel could ever be repaired or salvaged. The last Devourer ship died 4 hours and 57 minutes after the human fleet had opened fire. The battle space was filled with debris, wreckage, and the scattered remains of what had once been the most feared fleet in the galaxy. All enemy vessels destroyed, Kim reported. No survivors detected. The Devourer fleet has been completely eliminated. Torres nodded with satisfaction. Signal the fleet. Mission accomplished. Begin search and rescue operations for any galactic civilians who might need assistance. As the human ships began organizing refugee aid, the galactic observers tried to process what they had witnessed. The Devourers, who had consumed dozens of worlds and defeated every military force sent against them, had been utterly annihilated by a species that most aliens considered primitive. General Thoktar's transmission came through first. Admiral Torres, that was the most magnificent display of warfare I have ever witnessed. Your species fights with honor and fury that would make the ancient warriors weep with joy. Torres accepted the compliment gracefully, but her expression remained cold. General, this wasn't warfare. This was pest control. The Devourers made the mistake of threatening Earth. We simply reminded the galaxy why intelligent species learn to fear the dark. The aftermath would reshape galactic civilization. But for now, humanity had proven a simple point. Sometimes, the best defense against overwhelming technology is overwhelming violence applied with creative enthusiasm. The war was over, but the legend of human military capability had just begun. 3 weeks after the Battle of Kepler, the Galactic Council convened an emergency session that would fundamentally alter the balance of power in known space. Representatives from every major civilization gathered to discuss what they had witnessed and what it meant for the future of interstellar relations. The chamber buzzed with nervous energy as species that had dominated galactic politics for millennia tried to come to terms with humanity's overwhelming demonstration of military capability. The Devourers, who had seemed unstoppable, had been utterly annihilated in less than 5 hours by what everyone had considered a minor, primitive species. Dr. Sarah Chen took her place at the human delegation table with the same quiet confidence she had displayed 3 weeks earlier. But now, the other representatives watched her with a mixture of respect, fear, and calculation that hadn't been there before. The dismissive attitudes toward humanity had evaporated along with the Devourer fleet. Ambassador Zethkri of the Vorthak Empire spoke first, his crystalline form flickering with barely controlled agitation. The Council must address the implications of recent events. The human military demonstration has raised serious questions about the balance of power in our galaxy. General Thoktar, whose respect for human military prowess had only grown since the battle, gestured emphatically with his forearms. Questions? The only question is why we ever doubted a species capable of such magnificent warfare. The humans fought with honor and efficiency that puts our own military traditions to shame. That's precisely the problem, interjected Ambassador Veltar of the Etherian Collective. The level of violence displayed was unprecedented. Humanity showed no mercy, no restraint, no consideration for diplomatic resolution. They simply exterminated an entire species. Sarah finally spoke, her voice carrying the same calm authority that had characterized her previous appearances. Ambassador Veltar raises an interesting point about restraint. Perhaps we could discuss the restraint shown by the Devourers when they consumed the populations of 17 worlds. The chamber fell silent. The Devourers had indeed shown no mercy to their victims, converting entire planetary populations into raw materials for their war machine. But the systematic, efficient manner in which humanity had eliminated them was somehow more disturbing to civilizations that had never contemplated total war. The difference, Veltar continued, is that the Devourers acted according to their nature. They were a consuming species, driven by biological imperatives. Humanity made a conscious choice to pursue complete annihilation. Sarah's expression hardened slightly. You're suggesting that conscious choice makes us worse than mindless predators? Interesting perspective from a species whose survival depends on the protection of others. Representative Coolmesh of the tentacled hegemony shifted his massive bulk uncomfortably. Dr. Chen, surely you understand our concerns. Your species has demonstrated capabilities that far exceed anything we previously imagined. The tactical creativity, the industrial mobilization, the sheer scale of destruction, It forces us to reevaluate everything we thought we knew about galactic civilization. Good, Sarah replied bluntly. It's about time this galaxy had a realistic understanding of what warfare actually entails. You've all been playing at conflict with your honor codes and your diplomatic protocols. Real war isn't a game with rules, it's survival of the fittest on a civilizational scale. She stood and activated the holographic display system, showing footage from the Battle of Kepler. The assembled representatives watched human ships implementing tactics that defied every known military doctrine. Paint attacks, sonic weapons, ramming assaults, and dozens of other improvised strategies played out before their eyes. This is what human children learn from history classes, Sarah explained as the images continued. Every one of these tactics has precedent in our past conflicts. We've been refining the art of war for 10,000 years, while you've been refining the art of peaceful coexistence. The footage shifted to show the systematic hunting of fleeing devourer ships. Human vessels pursued their enemies with relentless determination, offering no quarter and accepting no surrender. It was a level of martial ruthlessness that most galactic species found deeply disturbing. But this raises critical questions about humanity's intentions, Ambassador Zethkree observed. If your species is capable of such thoroughness in warfare, how can other civilizations trust that humanity will remain peaceful? Sarah turned off the display and faced the assembled representatives directly. That's the wrong question, Ambassador. The right question is, what do you intend to do that would give humanity a reason for war? The implication hung heavy in the chamber. Humanity had demonstrated the capability to eliminate any threat to their existence with overwhelming force. The question of trust was irrelevant compared to the question of provocation. General Thoktar leaned forward with interest. Dr. Chen, perhaps you could clarify humanity's intentions regarding galactic politics? Will Earth seek expansion, resource acquisition, territorial control? Humanity has one primary interest in galactic affairs. Sarah replied, being left alone to develop as we see fit. We don't want your worlds, your resources, or your political systems. We just want the freedom to exist without external threats. Ambassador Veltar's ethereal form shimmered with confusion. But surely a species with such military capability would naturally seek to expand its influence? Sarah smiled with genuine amusement. Ambassador, you're thinking like a galactic civilization again. Yes. Most species with superior military strength use it to dominate others, but humanity's relationship with power is more complicated. We've spent our entire history fighting each other, remember? We understand that military strength creates obligations, not just opportunities. She reactivated the display, this time showing scenes from Earth's history, the rise and fall of empires, the costs of maintaining military dominance, the eventual collapse of every civilization that relied primarily on force. Every human general studies the Mongol Empire, the Roman Legion, the British Navy, the American military complex, Sarah explained. We know what happens to species that try to rule through strength alone. They overextend, exhaust their resources, and eventually collapse under their own weight. The historical examples played out on the holographic display, showing the pattern repeated across millennia of human conflict. Great powers rose through military might, then fell as the costs of dominance exceeded their ability to maintain control. So you're saying humanity has no imperial ambitions? Kulmesh asked skeptically. Your species demonstrates overwhelming military superiority and then claims to want nothing but isolation? Not isolation, Sarah corrected. Respect. There's a difference between wanting to be left alone and wanting to be ignored. Humanity is willing to participate in galactic civilization, but as equals, not as subjects or rulers. General Thoktar nodded approvingly. This is warrior wisdom. True strength comes from knowing when not to use your power. Exactly, Sarah agreed. But let's be clear about the implications. Humanity's demonstration against the Devourers serves as a reminder to anyone who might consider threatening Earth or human interests. We don't want to fight, but we're exceptionally good at it when we have to. The chamber buzzed with translation systems as representatives discussed this declaration in their native languages. The message was clear. Humanity was offering a form of détente, based on mutual respect and non-interference. Ambassador Zethkree spoke for the group after several minutes of discussion. The Council appreciates humanity's clarification of intent. However, the demonstration of military capability raises practical questions about galactic security. If other species develop similar warfare doctrines, they can't. Sarah interrupted. That's the point you're all missing. Human military effectiveness isn't just about technology or tactics, it's about mindset. You can't copy our approach to warfare without copying our entire evolutionary history. She activated a new display showing comparative cultural development across galactic species. Every civilization, except humanity, had achieved interstellar status through cooperation, resource sharing, and peaceful expansion. Their social structures were built around harmony and mutual benefit. Look at your own species, Sarah continued. The Vorthak Empire achieved dominance through technological superiority and administrative efficiency. The Zephyrian Confederacy built strength through honor codes and warrior traditions. The Etherian Collective developed through spiritual unity and collective consciousness. None of you have the cultural foundation for total warfare. The implications were staggering. Galactic civilizations couldn't simply adopt human military tactics because their entire social structures were incompatible with that level of organized violence. You're saying that human warfare doctrine is unique? General Thoktar asked with fascination. That our species could not learn to fight as humans fight? Could you teach your children to distrust their neighbors from birth? Sarah asked in return. Could you restructure your society around competition for limited resources? Could you glorify violence as a solution to political problems? More importantly, would you want to? The answer was obvious. No galactic civilization would willingly transform themselves into humanity's equivalent. The social costs would be catastrophic for species that had evolved beyond such conflicts. This creates an interesting dynamic, observed Ambassador Veltar. Humanity possesses military capabilities that cannot be replicated, making them effectively the galaxy's ultimate arbiter of force. Sarah shook her head firmly. No, we're not interested in being galactic police or arbiters of anything. We proved we could eliminate the Devourers, but that was a special case. They threatened everyone, including Earth. We're not going to intervene in normal political disputes or territorial conflicts. Representative Kulmesh leaned forward with his massive bulk. But what if another species develops technologies that threaten galactic civilization? What if someone creates weapons of mass destruction, or develops similar adaptive capabilities to the Devourers? Then you deal with it through normal diplomatic channels, Sarah replied. Humanity will only intervene if Earth is directly threatened, or if someone specifically requests our assistance through official diplomatic channels. The qualification was important. Humanity was offering their services as the galaxy's ultimate military option, but only under specific circumstances and through proper diplomatic protocols. The Council would need formal agreements regarding these intervention parameters, Ambassador Zethkree observed. Clear definitions of what constitutes a threat, requiring human military response. Sarah nodded. Earth is willing to negotiate such agreements, but understand the basic principle. We don't start fights, but we finish them. Anyone who threatens human interests, or specifically requests our help in extreme circumstances, can expect our full attention. General Thoktar's scarred features showed approval. This is honorable policy. The strong protect the weak, but do not seek dominion over them. There's one more factor the Council should consider, Sarah added, her tone becoming more serious. The Battle of Kepler was just a demonstration. Humanity mobilized a small fraction of our actual military potential for that engagement. The chamber erupted in shocked murmurs. The human fleet that had annihilated the Devourers represented only a fraction of Earth's capability? How much of your military strength was deployed? Ambassador Veltar asked with obvious concern. Sarah consulted her tablet briefly. Approximately 12% of our immediate mobilization capacity. Earth is currently maintaining over 400,000 combat vessels in various stages of deployment, with industrial capability to triple that number within 6 months. The numbers were staggering. If the force that had destroyed the Devourers was only a small portion of human military strength, then humanity possessed the capability to eliminate every other galactic civilization combined. This changes everything, Kulmesh muttered, his tentacles writhing with agitation. The balance of power is not just altered, it's completely inverted. Only if you insist on thinking in terms of power balances, Sarah replied. Humanity isn't interested in dominating galactic civilization. We're interested in being respected members of it. But respect requires understanding, and understanding requires honesty about capabilities. She paused to let this sink in before continuing. Every species in this chamber now knows exactly what humanity can do if provoked. You also know what we want to be left alone to develop our own society, while participating in galactic civilization as equals. Those are the parameters for peaceful coexistence. General Thoktar stood and performed a formal military salute. The Zephyrian Confederacy accepts these terms and offers alliance with humanity based on mutual respect and non-interference. One by one, other representatives began voicing similar agreements. The message was clear. Nobody wanted to test humanity's military capabilities, and everyone preferred peaceful coexistence to the alternative. Ambassador Zethkri spoke for the assembled council. The Galactic Council formally recognizes Earth's sovereignty and humanity's right to self-determination. We propose establishing formal diplomatic protocols for requesting human military assistance in extreme circumstances, while respecting humanity's non-interference policy in normal political affairs. Sarah nodded with satisfaction. Earth accepts these terms. We look forward to peaceful and productive relationships with all galactic civilizations. As the session ended, representatives began departing with a new understanding of galactic politics. Humanity had demonstrated overwhelming military superiority, while simultaneously establishing clear limits on when and how that power would be used. It was a masterful display of strategic thinking that impressed even the most experienced diplomats. The Devourers were gone, eliminated so thoroughly that no trace of their species remained. But more importantly, the galaxy had learned a crucial lesson about the nature of power and its proper application. Sometimes the greatest strength lies not in using overwhelming force, but in demonstrating it so convincingly that it never needs to be used again. In the months that followed, human ships would occasionally be seen at the edges of various conflicts, not participating but simply observing. Their presence served as a reminder that the galaxy had changed, and that some lines should never be crossed. Peace through strength had taken on new meaning, and everyone understood the implications. Humanity had entered the galactic community not as conquerors or rulers, but as the ultimate guarantors that some threats would never be allowed to endure. It was a responsibility they accepted reluctantly but carried with absolute determination. The war had ended in 5 hours, but its lessons would shape galactic civilization for millennia to come.